Why do some people walk into a room and instantly feel different? Not louder, not more polished, not trying harder than anyone else. And yet something about them pulls attention without effort and makes everyone around them feel their presence before they even say much. It is usually not beauty. It is not charm in the shallow sense. And it is definitely not performance. What draws people in most is often something calmer than that. A person who is not rushing, not over-explaining, not asking the room for approval, and not leaking need through every word, reaction, and movement. The Stoic view of presence has always pointed toward that same truth. The strongest attraction is often created by self-command, not by display. So this episode is not about tricks, image games, or learning how to act more desirable than you feel. It is about 10 habits that make your presence stronger, cleaner, steadier, and far more magnetic than trying ever could. And it begins with something simple that changes the entire emotional signal you send before your personality even has time to speak. 1. Be harder to rush. One of the fastest ways to make your presence feel weak is to move through life as if everything is late, because rushed energy does not stay hidden inside the body. It leaks through your walk, your breathing, your voice, your timing, even through the way you listen. And people may not have the language to explain what they are sensing from you, but they feel it immediately. They feel when someone is inwardly scattered. They feel when someone is trying to keep up with their own nervous system. And no matter how attractive a person may be on the surface, that inner scrambling creates a subtle impression of instability. What makes calm pacing so powerful is that it communicates something deeper than confidence. It communicates self-command. It tells the room, without saying it, that you are not being dragged by urgency, not trying to force connection, not trying to impress before the moment has even settled. That steadiness is attractive because it feels safe. People relax around someone who is not inwardly rushing. They do not feel managed, crowded, or energetically pushed. They feel space. This is where many people get attraction completely wrong. They think attraction begins with being more interesting, more witty, more expressive, more visible. But very often attraction begins earlier than that, in the nervous system. Before your words are judged, before your personality is fully known, people are already reading your pace. They are already sensing whether your presence feels settled or frantic, whether you seem anchored in yourself or slightly abandoned by your own inner state. A person who is easy to rush usually becomes easy to shake. Their speech speeds up when they want to be liked. Their body becomes slightly restless when attention enters the room. They answer too fast, explain too much, laugh a little too quickly, agree too early. And none of this happens because they are weak people. It happens because their system has not learned how to remain with itself under social pressure. Their energy starts chasing the moment instead of inhabiting it. But the opposite creates a completely different effect. When someone takes their time without becoming cold, when they answer without hurrying, when they move with an unforced rhythm, when their body says, "I am here, I am not scrambling, and I do not need to race this moment to be enough," that person becomes far more attractive than someone who is trying hard to seem attractive. The difference is felt instantly, because calm does not beg. Calm does not chase. Calm does not leak. That is why being harder to rush is not about becoming slow in an artificial way, and it is not about trying to look mysterious, detached, or above everyone else. People can feel performance too. What you want is not slowness as a pose. You want inner steadiness that naturally changes your tempo. That kind of pace cannot be faked for long, because it comes from how you breathe, how you think, how much urgency you carry, and whether you have trained yourself to remain grounded when life or people try to speed you up. In daily life, this changes more than you think. It changes how you enter conversations. Instead of speaking the second a silence appears, you let the moment breathe. It changes how you walk into rooms. Instead of arriving with an energy that says, "Notice me, respond to me, confirm me," you arrive already settled. It changes how you answer pressure. Instead of reacting at the speed of anxiety, you respond at the speed of clarity. That shift alone makes your presence feel more expensive, more stable, and far less needy. And that is the real point here. Attraction rises when people stop feeling your inner rush. Because rush usually means one of two things: fear or hunger. Fear of not being enough, or hunger to be received, admired, chosen, approved. Both create subtle pressure. Even if the person is kind, intelligent, and physically attractive, that pressure makes the energy feel less clean. But when the rush is gone, something quieter appears. Composure, weight, a sense that this person is not asking the room to regulate them. You can start training this in very ordinary moments. Slow your first response. Instead of jumping in instantly, let your exhale become longer when you feel social pressure rise. Walk as if there is nowhere else your body needs to be right now. Finish your sentence without racing its ending. Listen without preparing your next move too early. These are small adjustments on the outside, but they retrain something much deeper on the inside. They teach your body that presence does not need speed in order to have value. Over time, that changes the whole emotional texture of your presence. You stop feeling like someone who is trying to catch the moment before it leaves. You begin feeling like someone who can remain inside the moment without losing yourself. And that is attractive in a way people rarely forget, because so many live in constant internal acceleration that true steadiness feels rare the second it enters the room. So do not ask first how to seem more attractive. Ask whether your energy feels rushed, whether your body keeps announcing inner pressure before your mouth says anything at all, and whether you have mistaken speed for confidence. Because the calmer person often has more pull than the more impressive one, simply because calm feels grounded. And grounded presence is one of the first things people are drawn to, whether they understand it or not. If this point already feels uncomfortably real, take a second to like the video, because the rest of this episode will probably meet you exactly where your energy has been leaking. And once your pace stops leaking insecurity, the next shift becomes even more powerful, because attraction deepens when your words stop spilling everywhere and start carrying real weight. 2. Speak less, mean more. There is a kind of talking that does not create connection at all, even though it fills the air completely, and you can usually feel it the moment it starts, because the words do not come from clarity or ease. They come from pressure. Pressure to be liked, pressure to avoid silence, pressure to explain yourself well enough to stay in control of how the moment is going. And the strange thing is that the more a person speaks from that pressure, the less powerful they often feel, because too many words have a way of exposing the exact insecurity they were trying to hide. You can hear it in conversations all the time. Someone answers a simple question with far more than the moment required. Someone keeps adding details after the point was already clear. Someone laughs, explains, softens, clarifies, fills every pause, and by the end of it, you do not feel more drawn to them. You feel the effort. You feel the reaching. And even if the person is intelligent or charming, the energy underneath the words starts making their presence feel cheaper than it really is. This is why speaking less is not about silence for its own sake. It is about restraint with substance. It is about becoming the kind of person whose words do not spill out just to manage anxiety, but arrive with enough intention that they actually land. When someone knows how to do that, their presence changes immediately. People listen more closely, their voice carries more weight, their sentences feel cleaner, and most importantly, they stop sounding like someone trying to earn the moment while they are still inside it. A measured way of speaking is attractive because it signals inner order. It tells people quietly that you do not need to flood the space in order to feel safe in it. You do not need to impress with volume. You do not need to prove intelligence by saying more than necessary. You do not need to explain yourself into value. That kind of verbal discipline feels strong because it suggests that the person speaking is not being dragged by their own nervous system. That is where a lot of attraction is lost without people realizing it. They think talking more will make them seem more interesting, more expressive, more memorable, when often it does the opposite. It makes them feel less centered, less contained, less expensive. Words lose power when they come too easily. Not because words themselves are bad, but because constant output usually means there is no filter, no inner gate, no pause in which intention has time to form. And people feel that pause when it exists. They feel it when someone listens fully before answering. They feel it when a person does not rush to fill every silence. They feel it when the reply comes from decision rather than reflex. That kind of speech has density to it. It feels lived in. It feels like the person is not trying to perform a personality, but simply expressing one that already exists. And that difference matters more than people think. Sometimes saying less is also what keeps your presence from turning into self-exposure. Many people talk too much because they are trying to control how they are being seen. So they explain more, add more, reveal more, soften more, hoping the extra language will make them easier to like or harder to misunderstand. But attraction usually drops when someone seems too eager to be fully received. It creates the sense that their words are not being offered. They are being pushed. Measured speech removes that pressure. It lets the other person come toward you instead of feeling verbally crowded by you. It creates room for curiosity. It allows tension to remain clean instead of being dissolved too quickly by nervous talking. That is why some people say very little and still leave a deep impression. Their presence is not empty, it is concentrated. This does not mean becoming dry, distant, or emotionally flat. It does not mean answering with one-word replies and pretending detachment is depth. Real verbal restraint is warm, but it is not overeager. It is open, but not spilling. It is expressive, but still governed. The goal is not less humanity. The goal is less leakage. A good test is simple. When you are talking, are you adding because the moment truly needs it, or because you feel uncomfortable letting the sentence end? That question exposes a lot, because often the words after the point are not clarity, they are anxiety trying to stay in control. And the more you notice that, the more you can begin cutting your speech back to what actually carries meaning. You will start feeling the difference quickly. Conversations become less tiring. You stop replaying things you wish you had not said. People lean in more. You feel less scattered after social interactions because you're no longer pouring out energy through unnecessary language. And a quieter kind of confidence begins appearing. One that does not depend on saying the perfect thing, but on trusting that not everything valuable needs to be over-explained. That trust is attractive. It makes your voice feel steadier. It makes your presence feel more deliberate. It makes your silence between sentences feel natural instead of awkward. And once that happens, your words start doing what words should do, reveal something real instead of compensating for something unstable. So say what matters. Let it be clear. Let it be enough. And then let it stop. Because people are rarely drawn to the person who says the most. They are drawn to the person whose words feel chosen. And when your words stop trying to win everyone, the next habit becomes unavoidable, because attraction changes the moment your whole presence stops revolving around approval. 3. Stop needing everyone to like you. The moment you start shaping your presence around being liked, something in you becomes negotiable. It happens quietly. Your tone changes a little. Your opinions soften faster than they should. You laugh when you do not need to. You explain more than the moment deserves. You begin managing reactions before you have even fully decided what is true for you. And even if nobody can name exactly what they are sensing, they can feel that your energy is looking for approval instead of standing on its own feet. That search changes everything. A person who needs to be liked by everyone rarely feels fully settled, because too much of their attention is going outward. They are reading faces, adjusting tone, editing themselves in real time, trying to stay acceptable in every direction at once. That does not create warmth. It creates instability. It makes the presence feel slightly anxious, slightly eager, slightly easy to move. And attraction drops the moment your presence starts feeling like it can be reshaped by whoever is in front of you. This is why self-respect creates a very different kind of gravity. When someone no longer needs every room to approve of them, they move differently inside it. They stop offering small performances to secure acceptance. They stop trying to be harmless to everyone. They stop trying to be perfectly received. And in that shift, something becomes stronger without becoming harsh. Their presence feels more rooted because it is no longer asking for permission to exist. People are drawn to that more than they admit. Not because indifference is attractive, and not because coldness is powerful, but because inner permission is. There is something immediately calming about being around a person who is not trying to earn basic value through every interaction. They do not come into the room as a request. They come into it as themselves. That changes how their voice lands, how their body settles, how their eye contact feels, even how silence sits around them. Nothing is chasing. Nothing is begging to be confirmed. Approval-seeking always leaks. It leaks through over-agreement, through over-smiling, through speaking in a way that keeps checking whether the other person is still with you, through hiding your real boundaries because you fear the cost of honesty, through turning every interaction into a quiet attempt to stay chosen. And the more a person does that, the less their energy feels whole. It starts feeling adjustable, available, too easy to shape. That is the exact opposite of magnetism. Magnetism grows when there is some inner center that does not move just because the room changes temperature. A person can still be kind, warm, social, and open, but if their worth is not hanging from the reactions around them, everything about them feels steadier. Their yes means more. Their no feels cleaner. Their humor feels more natural. Their attention feels less desperate to be returned. They become easier to trust because they no longer seem like they would betray themselves just to keep the atmosphere pleasant. This is also why trying too hard to be liked often makes you less memorable, not more. People may enjoy the interaction in the moment, but something about it feels overmanaged. They do not quite meet a stable person. They meet a version designed for approval, and what is designed for approval often lacks depth because it is built around safety rather than truth. Stopping this does not mean becoming difficult on purpose. It does not mean acting detached, withholding warmth, or pretending not to care what anyone thinks. It means refusing to organize your whole presence around being accepted. There's a huge difference between being considerate and being approval-driven. Consideration comes from strength. Approval-seeking comes from dependence. One makes your presence warmer, the other makes it weaker. You can feel the difference in yourself. When you are not trying to be liked, conversation becomes lighter. You listen better because you are not busy performing. Your answers become cleaner because you are not trying to win the moment. You stop over-offering. You stop over-correcting. You stop needing every interaction to end with emotional proof that you were received well. That makes your energy feel more expensive, more grounded, and much more attractive than trying hard ever could. The difficult part is that letting go of approval creates discomfort at first. Some people may not understand you as easily. Some may like you less when you stop being so easy to shape. Some may call you distant when you are simply more honest. That discomfort matters because it reveals how much of your old likability may have been built on self-abandonment. And if being liked requires you to leave yourself behind, it was never really safety in the first place. So the practice here is simple. Stop checking the room so much. Stop editing every sentence for maximum acceptance. Stop offering your energy as if its main purpose is to keep everyone comfortable. Let a little tension exist. Let a little misunderstanding exist. Let someone be unconvinced without rushing to fix it. You will start to notice that your body feels more solid when you do. Your words land better. Your attention becomes more valuable, and your presence begins to gather the kind of weight that approval-seeking always dissolves. Because the truth is, the need to be liked makes your energy feel negotiable. Self-respect makes it feel anchored. And once that anchor starts appearing inwardly, it begins showing up physically too, in the way you stand, move, look, and occupy space. 4. Carry yourself like you respect yourself. Before someone understands your personality, they have already read your posture, your eye contact, your grooming, your pace, your tone, and the general way you seem to occupy your own body, which means attraction often begins long before conversation has had a chance to prove anything. It begins in the question your presence answers without words. Does this person seem at home in themselves, or are they still asking the world for permission to be there? That is why carrying yourself well is not a surface detail. It is not some shallow trick for appearing more attractive than you are. It is one of the clearest visible expressions of how you treat yourself internally. A person who respects themselves usually does not have to announce it. You can see it in the way they stand without collapsing into themselves, in the way they meet your eyes without forcing intensity, in the way their clothing and grooming suggest care rather than neglect or performance, and in the way their tone says, quietly, "I do not need to disappear just because I am in front of other people." This matters more than people think, because so much attraction is not built on perfect looks at all, but on whether someone seems to inhabit themselves well. You can feel when a person is constantly shrinking, apologizing with their body, rushing their gestures, hiding inside their own posture, or carrying themselves like they are slightly disconnected from their own existence. And you can feel the opposite just as quickly. You can feel when someone's body says, "I belong here." I am not trying to dominate this space, but I am not abandoning myself inside it either. That quiet difference changes how everything lands. A settled posture changes your whole emotional signal. It slows your presence down. It makes your breathing deeper, your movements cleaner, your voice steadier. It tells people that you are not moving from panic, and panic is often what makes people seem less attractive than they really are. Not because panic is immoral or shameful, but because it creates leakage. It leaks uncertainty through the shoulders, through the jaw, through the eyes, through the way a person keeps adjusting themselves physically, as if their body has not fully decided it is safe to stay. Carrying yourself like you respect yourself means reducing that leakage. It means your body stops apologizing for you before your mouth has even opened. It means you stop treating posture like a cosmetic detail and start seeing it as a psychological signal that affects not only how others feel around you, but how you feel inside yourself. The body is always speaking to the mind. When you carry yourself like someone who is settled, the mind receives that message. When you carry yourself like someone who is collapsing inward, the mind receives that too. This is why self-respect often becomes visible before charm does. Before humor, before intelligence, before style has time to fully register, there is already a physical impression taking shape, and people respond to that impression instinctively. They feel who seems grounded and who seems to be seeking reassurance from the room. They feel who is taking care of themselves and who is neglecting themselves. They feel who seems inwardly arranged and who seems slightly at war with their own body. None of this means perfection. A person does not become attractive by acting polished every second. In fact, trying too hard to look composed often creates another kind of tension that people can feel just as easily. The point is not to become stiff, curated, or overly aware of yourself. The point is to become more congruent, to let your body stop contradicting the respect you are trying to build inwardly. That often begins in small things. Standing fully instead of folding into one hip, like you do not want to be seen too clearly. Letting your shoulders rest instead of carrying invisible stress in them all day. Looking at people directly instead of glancing away too fast or staring too hard. Wearing things that feel clean, intentional, and aligned with your life instead of careless or overly performative. Speaking from the chest instead of from the throat. Taking up the space your body already occupies instead of mentally trying to become smaller inside it. These shifts look subtle, but they are not small. They change the emotional message your presence sends. A person who carries themselves with self-respect does not feel cheap energetically. Their attention feels cleaner. Their body doesn't look like it is asking to be rescued by other people's approval. And that makes them more attractive, not because they are trying to look superior, but because they are no longer visibly abandoning themselves. There is also something deeply calming about being around a person whose body seems to trust itself. You feel less pressure around them. They do not crowd the room with insecurity. They do not leak hidden apology through every movement. Their presence has a kind of settled honesty to it. Even when they are quiet, they do not seem absent. Even when they are warm, they do not seem over-eager. Their body has become part of their dignity. And that is really what this habit is about. Dignity made visible. If you respect yourself only in your thoughts, but your body keeps carrying you like someone unsure of their value, then people will feel the conflict before they understand the person. But when your body begins matching the respect you're building within, attraction becomes more natural, less forced, less dependent on performance. You stop trying to seem worthy because the way you carry your existence already says that you believe it is. So do not ask only whether you look attractive. Ask whether your body looks like it belongs to someone who treats themselves with care, steadiness, and quiet dignity, because that is what people actually respond to more often than they realize. They respond to the visible shape of self-respect. And once that shape becomes steadier, the next thing people feel is how difficult or how easy It is for life to disturb your center. 5. Learn to stay unbothered. You can feel very quickly when someone's presence depends too much on things going their way, because the moment pressure enters, or a tone shifts, or a small inconvenience appears, their whole energy changes. They get sharper, faster, more reactive, more visibly affected by what should have remained small. And that is what makes overreaction so expensive in attraction, because it tells people that your calm is fragile, your mood is easy to move, and your inner state can be disrupted by almost anything that touches it the wrong way. The opposite creates a completely different effect. When a person can stay composed under pressure, when they do not collapse into irritation, defensiveness, or visible emotional chaos every time something annoys them, their presence starts feeling stronger than their appearance, and that is rare enough to be deeply attractive. Not because they seem numb, and not because they pretend nothing affects them, but because they do not hand every small moment the power to rearrange their whole nervous system. That is what being unbothered really means. It is not deadness. It is not indifference. It is emotional steadiness. It is the ability to feel what is happening without immediately becoming ruled by it. A delayed reply does not instantly turn into insecurity. A bad mood in the room does not automatically become your problem. A small misunderstanding does not push you into proving, chasing, or defending. You stay with yourself. You stay in proportion. And proportion is one of the most calming things another person can feel around you. This matters because people do not only respond to beauty, wit, or style. They respond to nervous systems. They feel who gets thrown off easily and who does not. They feel who needs every interaction to stay smooth in order to remain settled, and who can stay centered even when the moment becomes awkward, messy, uncertain, or slightly uncomfortable. The second person almost always feels more attractive because steadiness creates trust faster than performance ever can. A lot of people lose this without realizing it by reacting too quickly. They answer the mood before they understand it. They interpret too fast. They defend too soon. They let tiny disturbances expand into full internal events. And because all of this happens so fast, they start believing it is honesty. They say, "That's just how I am. I feel things deeply. I react naturally." But reacting instantly is not always honesty. Sometimes it is just a lack of space between stimulus and response. And when that space is missing, your presence becomes easier to disturb than it should be. What makes calm under pressure so attractive is that it suggests inner depth. It suggests that not everything gets immediate access to you, that not every opinion enters fully, that not every inconvenience becomes emotional weather. People relax around that because it feels safe, it feels grown, it feels like being around someone who will not turn every moment into a problem just because something felt uncomfortable for a second. And this is where many people misunderstand being unbothered and turn it into an act. They become cold, dismissive, perform detached confidence, or try to look above everything. But that is only another form of insecurity wearing a calmer face. Real steadiness does not need to advertise itself. It does not need to look superior. It simply stays measured. It keeps its emotional balance even when life or people become slightly difficult. That is what gives it weight. You can see this in ordinary situations. Someone interrupts you, and instead of scrambling to take your space back, you stay composed and speak when the moment opens. Someone disagrees with you, and instead of rushing into over-explanation, you remain clear without becoming tight. A plan changes, a delay happens, a conversation becomes awkward, and your whole body does not immediately announce distress. That kind of response does something powerful to your presence. It makes people feel that your peace is not rented from perfect conditions. And that is deeply attractive, because so many people today are visibly easy to shake. One small frustration and their face changes. One moment of uncertainty and their tone changes. One social discomfort and their whole energy begins trying to recover itself. But when your system is more regulated than that, you stand out without trying to. Your calm begins doing part of the work your looks, your words, and your style could never do alone. There is also a hidden layer to this. The less easily bothered you are, the less needy your energy feels. Not because you want less from life, but because you are no longer asking every moment to confirm that you are okay. You do not need constant smoothness to feel stable. You do not need constant reassurance to stay open. You do not need every room to go well in order to keep your dignity. That kind of emotional independence creates a pull that people feel immediately because it removes pressure from your presence. So the work here is not to stop feeling. The work is to stop letting every feeling take the wheel. Let the reaction arrive, but do not let it become your face, your tone, your whole posture toward the moment before you have even taken one breath. Slow the first response. Keep proportion. Let small things stay small. Let awkwardness stay awkward without treating it like danger. The calmer you become in those moments, the more grounded your presence feels to everyone around you. Because attraction grows when people sense that your energy is not constantly under threat. It grows when your mood does not look easily hijacked. It grows when your calm feels earned, not performed. And once your emotional steadiness gets stronger, another kind of strength becomes visible too. The way your attention lands, and whether it feels scattered or valuable. 6. Make your attention feel valuable. There is a big difference between being warm and being endlessly available, and a lot of people damage their presence by confusing the two, because when your attention goes everywhere, reacts to everything, and is handed out with no selectivity, it stops feeling like presence and starts feeling like overflow. You may think you are being generous, easygoing, or open, but what people often feel instead is that your energy has no edges, no filter, no hierarchy, and what has no hierarchy rarely feels valuable for long. Attention is one of the first things people feel from you, even before they fully understand your personality. They feel whether you are fully with them or only half with them. They feel whether your presence is deliberate or scattered. They feel whether you give the same intensity to everyone and everything, or whether there is something in you that knows how to choose. And strangely enough, attraction rises when people feel that your attention is not cheap. Not because you are withholding it like a game, but because it clearly belongs to you first. A person who gives full energy to every notification, every stranger, every passing mood in the room, every small conversation, every bid for access, begins to feel emotionally overexposed. Their presence loses shape. There is no sense of rarity in their focus, no sense that their energy is being invested with intention. And once that happens, even kindness starts feeling less magnetic, because it is no longer backed by discernment. It just feels automatic. But when someone knows how to place attention carefully, everything changes. Their listening feels deeper because it is not sprayed everywhere. Their eye contact feels calmer because they are not mentally split in 5 directions. Their conversations feel more memorable because you can sense that they are actually there. And perhaps most importantly, when they do give you their attention, it feels different from casual access. It feels chosen. That is powerful. People are drawn to what feels intentional, not stiff, not calculated, but intentional. They feel safer around it. They respect it more. They often want more of it without fully knowing why. Because what you are really creating is contrast. If your attention is always equally distributed, nobody feels the difference when they truly have it. But when your energy has standards, when not every person gets the same level of access, when not every moment gets the same emotional investment, your presence gains weight. This does not mean becoming distant or emotionally unavailable. It means refusing to let your energy become public property. It means you stop reacting to everything with the same force. You stop answering every invitation with the same openness. You stop letting random access flatten the value of your attention. In practice, it can be very simple. You do not interrupt your own peace just because something external wants immediate entry. You do not give deep energy to shallow interactions. You do not keep overextending presence where there is no reciprocity, no respect, and no real reason. That selectivity is attractive because it signals self-possession. It says, quietly, that your energy is not begging to be used. It says your inner world is organized enough that attention is an investment, not a reflex. And people can feel that. They feel the difference between someone whose energy is always spilling outward and someone whose attention has depth because it is governed. You can see this clearly in social dynamics. The person who tries to engage with everyone at once often becomes less memorable than the person who remains calm, observant, and genuinely present when it matters. The one flooding the room with energy seems to need the room. The one using attention carefully seems to have chosen the room. That difference is subtle, but it changes the whole emotional texture of attraction. There is also a deeper layer here. When your attention becomes more valuable, your relationships improve too, because people stop receiving a distracted, overextended, diluted version of you. They either get your real presence or they get less access. Both are cleaner than giving half attention to everyone and then wondering why your energy feels drained and your connections feel thin. And this applies inwardly as much as socially. The more your attention is scattered, the less attractive your energy feels, because scattered attention creates neediness. It creates the feeling that you are always being pulled, always reacting, always available to the next thing that demands entry. But when attention is placed deliberately, your whole presence starts feeling calmer, fuller, and more expensive in the best sense. You are no longer giving yourself away in fragments. So let your attention have standards. Let it be intentional. Let it belong to your values more than to people's demands. Because the truth is, not everyone should get equal access to your energy, and attraction often rises the moment your presence stops feeling automatic and starts feeling chosen. And once attention becomes more deliberate, quiet moments stop feeling like something you have to rescue. 7. Be comfortable with silence. Silence exposes people. It exposes who is settled and who is scrambling, who can stay present without filling the air, and who starts performing the second a quiet moment appears. Because for a lot of people, silence does not feel neutral at all. It feels dangerous. It feels like they are losing momentum, losing charm, losing control of how the interaction is being received. So they rush to repair it with words, nervous laughter, over-explaining, extra energy, anything that keeps the moment from becoming still long enough to reveal what is really happening inside them. And that is exactly why comfort with silence is so attractive. A person who does not panic when the room goes quiet gives off a completely different kind of signal. Their presence feels less needy, less rehearsed, less eager to manage every impression in real time. They do not act like every pause is a problem to solve. They let the moment breathe. They let a sentence land. They let eye contact remain for a second longer. They let the conversation have shape instead of flooding it with sound just to avoid the discomfort of stillness. People feel that immediately because most are used to being around energy that keeps trying to rescue the silence before it has a chance to become anything meaningful. And silence can become a lot of things when you stop fearing it. It can become depth. It can become tension in the good sense, not awkwardness, but presence. It can make a person feel more grounded because they are not spending every quiet second trying to prove that they are interesting enough to keep the atmosphere alive. It can make listening feel more real. It can make your words land with more force because they are no longer buried under too many extra ones. This is why silence is not emptiness when it comes from inner ease. It is weight. A comfortable pause says more than people think. It says you are not dependent on constant verbal movement to feel okay. It says you trust yourself enough not to perform through every gap. It says your presence doesn't disappear just because your mouth stops moving. And that creates a kind of magnetism that nervous over-talking almost always destroys. You can watch this happen in ordinary conversation. Someone asks a question, and one person answers immediately, almost too quickly, as if the pause itself would expose them. Another person receives the question, lets it settle for a second, then answers from somewhere calmer. The words may not even be better in content, but they feel better. They feel chosen. The second person seems more present, more self-contained, more real. The first person often seems like they were trying to outrun the silence. That difference matters more than people realize. Silence also protects you from one of the biggest killers of attraction, unnecessary self-exposure. Many people say too much not because they are naturally expressive, but because quiet makes them aware of themselves. So they start talking to cover the discomfort. They offer extra details, extra stories, extra explanations, hoping the movement itself will make them feel safer. But what often happens instead is that they leak energy, reveal too much too early, and make the interaction feel less grounded than it needed to feel. A person who is comfortable with silence does not need to do that. They are not trying to force closeness before it has earned itself. They are not trying to fill the room with personality before the room has even asked for it. They understand that connection does not die in silence. In many cases, it deepens there. This is especially true when silence is paired with ease in the body, relaxed breathing, unhurried eye contact, no sudden compulsion to fix the moment. That combination is powerful because it makes the quiet feel natural instead of strained. People are not uncomfortable around silence itself nearly as much as they are uncomfortable around tension. If your silence is tight, people feel trapped in it. If your silence is calm, people often feel pulled into it. That is why the goal is not to become artificially quiet or mysterious. Forced silence feels just as unnatural as nervous talking. The goal is to become less afraid of quiet moments, so you stop trying to control them too quickly. You let there be space after a sentence. You let there be stillness in your body when attention comes toward you. You let a conversation pause without assuming something has gone wrong. You let the moment exist before deciding it needs rescue. That changes your whole energy. It makes your presence feel more lived in, less eager, more grounded, less performative. You stop seeming like someone who needs constant stimulation to stay emotionally afloat. And that makes people feel a rare kind of ease around you. Because so many are used to being around people who cannot tolerate silence without turning it into noise. So learn to stay there for 1 second longer than your insecurity wants to. Let the pause happen. Let the room breathe. Let your face stay soft instead of rushing to cover the moment with words. Over time, you will notice that silence stops feeling like absence and starts feeling like depth. And once you stop performing to fill every quiet moment, the next question becomes much bigger than conversation. It becomes whether your whole presence feels natural or managed. 8. Stop performing and start being real. You can usually tell when someone is trying to be attractive instead of simply being present, because there is a thin layer of effort over everything they do. The smile lands a little too carefully. The tone feels slightly managed. The humor arrives too fast. Even the confidence looks arranged, as if it was chosen for the moment, rather than grown through a life that actually fits the person living it. None of this means they are fake in some dramatic moral sense. It usually just means they are trying to make sure they are received well, but that effort, even when polished, creates distance. People may notice it, respond to it, even admire it briefly, but they rarely relax inside it. What lasts is something else. Realness has a different texture. It feels lived in. It feels like the person is not assembling themselves in front of you in real time. Their words are not overly edited. Their reactions are not designed for maximum effect. Their presence does not feel like a pitch, and because it is not straining to impress, it often becomes more impressive than performance ever could. This is where a lot of attraction quietly rises or dies. If your energy is constantly managing an image, people may feel your style, your looks, your charisma, but they will also feel the labor underneath it. They will feel that you are trying to land well, trying to appear a certain way, trying not to let the less polished parts of you show. The moment that effort becomes visible, your presence starts feeling less natural, less grounded, less trustworthy. Because people are rarely drawn only to polish. They are drawn to congruence. They want to feel that what they are seeing is connected to something real inside you. That is why performance may impress quickly, but usually struggles to create lasting pull. It can catch attention, but it often cannot hold it with the same depth, because performance is exhausting to maintain. It needs constant monitoring. It needs the room to keep cooperating. It needs feedback. And the more a person lives like that, the more their presence begins depending on external response. If the room likes them, they expand. If the room goes quiet, they tighten. If the reaction is uncertain, they work harder. That dependency is exactly what makes the energy feel less attractive over time. Realness removes that dependency, not because a real person stops caring entirely, but because they stop building every interaction around the fear of being seen imperfectly. They are no longer trying to look effortless. They are simply less divided inside themselves. Their humor sounds like theirs. Their silence sounds like theirs. Their style fits their life. Their words match their energy. Even when they are not at their best, there is something consistent about them that feels easier to trust than someone who is always slightly on. And that consistency matters more than people think. A person becomes more magnetic when they feel inhabitable, when it feels like there is an actual self there, and not only a social version optimized for approval. That does not mean oversharing, emotional dumping, or turning being real into chaos. Realness is not the absence of boundaries. It is the absence of unnecessary performance. It is a cleaner relationship with yourself. You're no longer using image management to hold everything together. This changes the whole emotional atmosphere around you. People stop feeling like they have to decode what is authentic and what is strategic. They feel more at ease because your energy is not constantly repositioning itself. You're not trying to win every moment. You are not performing confidence instead of having self-respect. You're not crafting an identity on the spot. You're simply there, and that simple thing is much rarer than it should be. There is also a relief that comes with this for you. Performance keeps the nervous system busy. It makes you monitor too much. It makes social moments heavier than they need to be. You start leaving interactions not because anything went wrong, but because managing yourself all the way through them quietly drained you. Realness gives some of that energy back. You stop trying to make every room become proof of your value. You let yourself be a person instead of a presentation. And that alone makes your presence calmer, lighter, and more attractive. A good way to feel the difference is to notice where you become most rehearsed. Maybe you become too polished around people you want to impress. Maybe you exaggerate confidence when you feel uncertain. Maybe you make yourself more agreeable, more witty, more detached, or more cool than you naturally are. None of this needs self-hatred. It just needs honesty. Because once you see where the performance enters, you can begin removing the unnecessary parts of it. You do not need to become raw or careless. You just need to stop decorating yourself so heavily that people lose the feeling of meeting someone real. Attraction deepens when someone feels true enough to rest in their own skin. Not perfect, not constantly vulnerable, just real enough that their presence has nothing desperate in it. No hard sell, no invisible begging, no over-constructed identity trying to hold the whole moment together. So let some edges stay natural. Let your tone sound like yours. Let your reactions be governed, but not manufactured. Let your presence stop trying so hard to be received correctly, because the more real you become, the less effort attraction requires. People may not always be able to explain why, but they feel the difference between someone who is lived in and someone who is rehearsed. And once you stop performing, the next layer becomes clear. Whether your life itself feels full, or whether your energy is still begging the outside world to validate it. 9. Build a life that does not beg to be seen. There is a noticeable difference between someone who is quietly building something real and someone who is constantly trying to make sure their life is being noticed, because one kind of energy feels rooted and the other feels hungry, even when both people are talented, attractive, or outwardly confident. You can feel when a person's center is in the work, in the discipline, in the direction they are living toward. And you can feel when their center keeps drifting outward toward the audience, toward reactions, toward being witnessed often enough to stay convinced that what they are doing matters. That second pattern is more common than people realize. A person begins improving, but almost immediately the improvement wants to become visible. The new habit wants to be shown. The new direction wants to be announced. The new discipline wants to be recognized, and little by little, the life stops being built for its own depth and starts being shaped around how it looks from the outside. That shift may seem small, but it changes the whole atmosphere of a person's presence. Instead of feeling full, they begin feeling slightly performative. Instead of feeling anchored, they begin feeling externally dependent. Instead of feeling attractive in the deeper sense, they begin feeling like they are asking to be noticed. Quiet purpose does the opposite. When someone has a life that is actually pulling them forward, they do not need to squeeze identity out of every interaction. They do not need every room to confirm them. They do not need to narrate themselves into importance. You feel that immediately because their energy is invested somewhere real. Their mind is not overly available. Their attention is not constantly scanning for response. Their presence feels deeper simply because part of it is protected by direction. That is attractive in a way many people cannot explain, because it creates substance. A person with private direction feels like they belong to something beyond the moment. They are not arriving empty, hoping the room will fill them. They are arriving with a life already in motion. And when someone carries that kind of private momentum, their presence naturally becomes more magnetic, not because they are trying to seem unavailable, but because they are no longer building themselves around being seen. This matters because people often confuse visibility with value. They think if they are noticed more, desired more, watched more, they will automatically become more attractive. But attraction loses depth when it starts smelling like self-advertisement. People may respond to it quickly, but the response often stays shallow because what they are feeling is not the gravity of substance. It is the pull of display. And display can hold attention for a moment, but it rarely creates the calmer, stronger pull that comes from a person whose life has internal weight. A life with substance gives the body a different kind of confidence. It changes how you walk into rooms because you are no longer asking that room to give you a purpose for being there. It changes how you speak because your words are not doing all the work of creating value. It changes how your attention lands because you are not trying to harvest significance from every exchange. You become more present precisely because you are less dependent on the moment to make you feel real. That does not mean becoming secretive, distant, or emotionally unreachable. It means protecting enough of your direction that your life remains larger than the performance of it. You stop giving every small piece of progress to the outside world. You stop oversharing your next move before it has roots. You stop turning your becoming into constant communication. And because of that, your energy begins to feel more contained, more mature, and more trustworthy. People are often drawn to those who seem to have somewhere inwardly to return to. Not a fake mystery, not coldness, just a private center, a life that is being built whether anyone is watching or not. That quality softens neediness because attention is no longer being treated like oxygen. It also makes your presence more restful to be around. You are not placing the invisible burden on others of having to confirm that your life matters. You already live as if it does. That is where attraction deepens, not in louder confidence, but in quieter substance. So ask yourself where your energy has been going, into building or into broadcasting, into direction or into impression, into the private discipline that makes a life stronger, or into the visible version of growth that looks impressive before it has really matured. The answer matters, because people can feel when your life is still searching for an audience. And they can feel when your life already has a spine. Build the spine first. Let the life become real before it becomes visible. Let your habits gain weight before they gain applause. Let your directions settle into you so deeply that even in silence, people can feel that you're not drifting. Because a person with private purpose carries a different kind of presence. Less hungry, less exposed, less dependent on being received. And once your life stops asking to be witnessed in order to feel real, one final layer becomes much clearer, whether your energy itself feels clean or whether it still carries invisible need. 10. Let your energy feel clean, not needy. There is a kind of energy that makes people pull away, even when the person carrying it is attractive, kind, intelligent, or well-spoken, and it usually has nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with hunger. Not hunger in the obvious sense, but the quieter kind, the need to be chosen, the need to be reassured, the need to feel special in someone else's eyes, the need to keep the interaction alive so you can keep feeling valuable inside it. People do not always know how to describe that feeling when they sense it, but they respond to it immediately. Their body feels the pressure before their mind explains it. That is why the deepest form of attraction often comes from emotional cleanliness. Clean energy does not chase. It does not lean too hard. It does not keep reaching into the moment asking, "Do you like me? Do you feel me? Do I matter here?" It stays present without trying to force a result. It lets interest breathe. It lets connection form at its own pace. It does not turn every interaction into a referendum on self-worth. And because it does not carry that pressure, people relax inside it. Needy energy creates the opposite effect. Even when it is subtle, it starts pulling at the room. It can show up in over-texting, over-explaining, over-giving, over-reading signals, trying too hard to stay in someone's mind, trying too hard to seem different, trying too hard to make sure the connection does not fade. None of this has to be dramatic to weaken attraction. In fact, the most powerful forms of neediness are often the quiet ones. The invisible emotional leaning, the way your attention starts orbiting someone too fast, the way your mood begins depending on how warmly the moment comes back to you. That dependence is what people feel, and the reason it weakens attraction so quickly is simple. It makes your presence feel less whole. It makes it feel like you are arriving with a private emptiness you hope the interaction will solve. Even if your words are smooth, even if your humor lands, even if your appearance is strong, the energy underneath begins asking instead of offering. It stops feeling grounded. It starts feeling hungry. Clean energy feels different because it comes from enoughness. Not perfection, not arrogance, not emotional distance, but enoughness. You are not coming into the room to be completed. You are not speaking in order to be validated into existence. You are not giving attention in order to secretly buy attachment. You are simply present, open, alive, and self-respecting enough that your energy does not become a request. That is deeply attractive because it removes hidden pressure from the interaction. The other person does not feel that they must feed your ego, soothe your insecurity, or keep proving their interest every few minutes so you can stay settled. They feel freedom around you, and freedom is one of the most attractive emotional experiences a person can have around another human being. This is also why desperation is so damaging, even in small amounts. Desperation makes energy sticky. It makes every delay feel loaded, every silence feel threatening, every mixed signal feel like a wound. Clean energy does not do that. It can register interest without collapsing into fixation. It can enjoy someone without mentally handing them too much power. It can let things unfold without immediately trying to secure, define, or rescue the connection. That kind of steadiness changes everything. It makes your eye contact feel calmer because you are not silently asking for something through it. It makes your voice sound cleaner because your words are not carrying hidden need. It makes your attention more powerful because it is not being thrown around by emotional hunger. And it makes your whole presence feel more attractive because people feel the difference between being near someone who wants to connect and being near someone who needs the connection to confirm their worth. This does not mean becoming detached, emotionally unavailable, or pretending not to care. That is just another performance. Clean energy is warm. It is sincere. It can be affectionate, playful, interested, even vulnerable. But it stays rooted in self-respect. It does not beg. It does not chase what is not meeting it halfway. It does not keep bleeding dignity into moments that are no longer clear. And that is what makes it beautiful. It lets attraction stay light instead of heavy. It lets connection stay natural instead of loaded. It lets your presence feel full rather than hungry. So if you want to become more attractive without trying harder, stop asking first how to make people want you, and start asking whether your energy feels peaceful to be around, whether it feels whole, whether it feels clean, whether it leaves people with space to come closer instead of subtly making them responsible for your emotional balance. Because what draws people in most is often not extra charm, extra style, or extra performance. It is the absence of pressure, the absence of desperation, the absence of that invisible need to be chosen in order to feel complete. And when that need begins to fade, your presence becomes much more magnetic than effort ever could. Attraction is rarely built by trying harder to appear attractive. More often, it appears when the noise starts falling away, when the rush softens, the speech becomes cleaner, the body feels more settled, the reactions slower, the attention more intentional, and the life behind the person stops begging to be seen. That is what these habits are really doing. They are not teaching you how to impress people. They are teaching you how to become more anchored in yourself. And the more anchored you become, the less you need to perform for attention, chase approval, fill every silence, or make your energy louder than it needs to be. Stoicism points toward a kind of presence that is quiet, self-respecting, emotionally governed, and internally stable. And that kind of presence tends to draw people in, not because it is trying to, but because it no longer has to. So do not try to apply all 10 habits at once. Pick the one that exposed you the most, the one that showed you where your energy still leaks, and start there. Clean that part up, slow it down, strengthen it. Let attraction become the side effect of a presence that feels calmer, clearer, and more whole. And if this episode gave you something real, take a second to like the video and write in the comments. Presence is stronger than performance.